bang to the cash drop, you know what I'm saying?
From that day, I knew I was from Athens Park. I knew I was a blood, and I knew the rest.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we tapping in the streets of LA, and we're gonna be taking a dive into the Athens Park Bloods versus the Crips. We'll be talking about multiple different cases involving the Athens Park Bloods in different Crip hoods. The Athens Park Bloods, also known as APB, formed around the late 60s, early 70s in the Athens area of South Los Angeles. Originally known as the Athens Park Boys, they emerged around Athens Park. During the mass growth of the Crips, we'll get a confrontation between Jamal Barnes, closely affiliated with Tookie Williams, and a man by the name of Eugene Taboo from Athens Park.
Stories of how the Crips, led by Tookie and Jamal Barnes, came to Athens Park to recruit more Crips. Taboo, Eugene Battle, declined, and they say that Eugene Battle knocked out Jamal Barnes right in the middle of Athens Park.
Athens Park Blood Hood stretches roughly from Figueroa Avenue all the way to Avalon Boulevard, west and east, including 124th and 127th Streets. They mainly beef with the 11-8 block East Coast Crips and the Raymond Avenue Crips. In 1979, a man by the name of Mickey Fountain would be killed by the Crips in Athens Park.
They're alive. And this cat, Mickey Fountain, that got killed. Everybody up here, all the old guys were like crying. It was like a real dramatic scene, you know. And I felt like them, I felt like these are my people. I'm with them. So from that day, I knew I was from Athens Park. I knew I was a blood, and I knew the rest.
This incident right here would only cause further divide amongst the city and solidify the beef with the Athens Park Bloods and the Crips. By the 1980s, LA was a war zone, not only due to the beef, but also the drug trade and gangs wanting larger territory for more profit. With more profit means access to more firepower and cars for war. And as a result of this, there was an influx of murder which tore through the streets of LA. Also around this time, we would see the Athens Park Bloods form a close alliance with the Miller Gangster Bloods and the Jungle Stones. During this time period, the Athens Park Bloods would take some losses due to the war. In July of 1988, Athens Park member Dannon Santos, aka Brick, will participate in an anti-gang public service announcement commercial.
And, it ain't good to be gangbanging and stuff. I really can't tell y'all what to do out there. But I just figured I'm already in and my life's already messed up.
Not long after this, on Thursday, July 14th, Santos was shot in a drive-by shooting, which he would survive, and he will be released 2 days later. On the evening of July 16th, Santos and other Athens Park Bloods were walking across the empty parking lot on 121st Street and Avalon Boulevard. Moments later, an 11-8 East Coast Crip would roll up on a bike and pull out a revolver. The Athens Park Bloods, including Santos, all started running. While running, Santos tripped and fell in the middle of the street, and the East Coast Crip walked up next to him with the loaded revolver and shot him several times. Santos' grandfather would come out running and hold him in his arms as Santos' life slipped away. He was officially pronounced dead at St. Francis Medical Center in Linwood. As we head into the 90s, the war with the Athens Park Bloods and the Crips would only intensify with the shootings. And as I always say in my videos, there are always casualties in war, but most of the time the casualties are the innocent.
Katie's cries of pain fill the small house in Willowbrook. She's looking for answers, but there are none. At 21, Katie Jones is already learning one of life's hardest lessons, the pain of losing a child.
My baby is dead. They killed my baby.
Mitchshalae Jones was only 14 months old. Last night, she was gunned down. Mitchshalae, her mother Katie, and two uncles had just come home. They were getting out of their car when tragedy struck. Sheriff's officials say a blue Jeep Wagoneer drove by and opened fire. Everyone was hit. The baby was killed. Her parents want to know why.
Angry, upset. I can't believe this has just happened.
My baby hasn't done anything to nobody because she was too young.
And it's killed a baby.
It was a bloody mess, man. It was a bloody mess.
This neighbor who did not want to give his name says he ran outside after he heard the shots.
I seen two victims on the ground in front on the sidewalk and the other victim laying in the yard and the baby gasping for air as she was shot in the head. And it was terrible that they would ride by and kill an innocent kid.
Not long after this, 3 members of 11-8 East Coast Crips will be arrested for the murder. Vernon Cox, Sean Yoakley, and Darrell Whitson. Vernon Cox, who was only 15 at the time, would agree to testify against the other two 11-8 Crips for immunity. Sean Yoakley was revealed to be the shooter, and Winston was revealed to be the driver, as Vernon Cox was in the passenger seat of the vehicle. Winston and Yoakley would both be convicted and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Around 1992, the peace treaty between the Bloods and the Crips temporarily stopped the violence, but unfortunately, it didn't last long. After so much pain and after so much bloodshed, not everybody wanted peace.
Do you want peace? Do I want? I could care less about peace. You know what I'm saying? How can I peace up with somebody that just scored me for the rest of my life?
Speaking for the hood.
Yeah, I'm not. It's half of the
Athens, we not seeking peace.
Yeah,
Too many scars.
people that I lost. I vowed to them as they was suffering their last breath. You understand that mission will be carried out.
Not long after this, OG Big Mouth of Athens Park Blood would take a big hit to his family.
3 days ago, we lost Mouse. He's a twin of one of my OG homeboys named Big Mouse. And these were his twin sons. He started saying, man, watch out for my sons. Mouse was in the penitentiary and he got 40 years in Vegas somewhere. You looked at twin Tyrell, that's his name, Tyrell. Tyrell equals Athens Park. He rode a bike, man, way over into Compton. Coming down El Segundo, me and Loco, the sheriff get behind me and they pull me over and they say, yeah, you know. And he said, yeah, your homeboy got killed. He's dead around the corner. And I said, who is it? He says, one of the twins, but we don't know which one. We want you to tell us which twin it is. And all the Crips is out there, you know what I'm saying? They smirks on their face and shit. And shit, man, twin was laid out there looking bad.
By the mid-90s, the Athens Park Blood were extremely active in the streets, not letting off the gas. On February 21st of 1995, a man by the name of Robert Davis had just bought a radio from a friend at a house on Hawthorne. As he headed back to his car, a group of Athens Park Bloods confronted him. Ronald McCain, Marcel Cloud, Pitts, Earl Sudduth, Wardrick, and St. Ames. One of the Bloods proceeded to put a screwdriver against his abdomen. They would then tell him to empty out all his pockets, and once he did give him all his money, they put a pillowcase over his head and they started beating him up. They then tossed Davis into the car, forcing him to get more money from his home. Once they arrived at Davis's home, they realized there was no money inside the house. So Davis then told the Bloods that his girlfriend, who lived in Inglewood, would possibly have some money at her house. So then the Bloods drove Davis all the way to Sonia Spencer's home. Athens Park member by the name of Sudduth would then push David inside the home and began searching in his girlfriend Sonia's bedroom looking for money. David's girlfriend, Sonia Spencer, would then see what's happening, and Athens Park Blood member Sudduth would tie her up, holding a knife to her throat. As he held the knife to her throat, the other Athens Park Blood members made sure that her 4 kids didn't try to escape through the bedroom window. After realizing that there was no money in the house, the Bloods would then begin to stomp on Davis once again. As David pleaded for his life, he suggested that they go to his mother's home in Lancaster, where there was a couple thousand that he can get from there. Before leaving the house, Athens Park member Sudduth would ask Davis, was the 4 children his? Davis acknowledged that those children was his, and Sudduth would take Davis's 7-month-old baby, Janiyah, as leverage to make sure that Davis and his girlfriend Sonia didn't try anything. Sonia would be left at the house and threatened that if she were to call the police, that they would kill her baby and Davis at the same time, while also coming back to kill her. Upon arriving to Davis's mother's home, Davis and the Athens Park Blood got out of the car. Sudduth and a few other Athens Park Blood proceeded to head towards the door, and the other Athens Park Blood stayed in the car with the baby who was in the back seat. As Davis and the Athens Park Blood member Sudduth were walking up to the door, inside, Davis's sister noticed that something was wrong and she immediately called 911. Once inside, Athens Park Blood member Sudduth told her to get off the phone immediately. Moments later, an unmarked police vehicle would ride by. Pitts and the other Athens Park Blood who saw the unmarked vehicle ride by decided to follow the car to make sure it wasn't the police. And as Pitts got on side of the vehicle, he realized it was the cops and immediately panicked and eventually led the police on a high-speed chase, doing over 120 miles per hour. And eventually he lost control of the car and would crash. Unfortunately, due to this crash, 7-month-old Janiyah would die from impact. Back at the house, Athens Park Blood members Sudduth and Keynes were still in David's mother's house, but another unit would arrest them as it came running outside the home. All members of the Athens Park Blood that were involved in this kidnapping and murder were convicted of robbery, murder, and kidnapping, and were all sentenced to life without parole. On November 5th, 1997, a 42-year-old Wanita Palasio had just graduated and achieved her bus driver's license. She was very excited and she had let everybody know about her accomplishments. Only hours later, Wanita sat on her couch while watching TV when alleged members of 1118 Crips rolled up outside. Also outside the apartment, her daughter, Naujia, was outside talking to a friend named Brandon when the 1118 Crips started running towards them. Naujia and Brandon ran into the house. Suddenly, a barrage of shots came through the living room window, and one of the bullets pierced the heart of 42-year-old Wanita. Wanita would die at the hospital. Police believe the suspect's intended target was Wanita's daughter, best friend Brandon, who was believed to be an Athens Park Blood member. 3 teenagers were taken into custody. Martin Fields, who was 18, and 2 juveniles, one 17 and one 15-year-old. A handgun believed to be tied to the murder weapon was discovered in the stolen vehicle the suspects were driving. Days later, the teenager that was 15 years old was arraigned for the murder of Wanita and other charges, and he was eventually convicted of the murder of 42-year-old Wanita. Heading into the summer of 2000s, this will be one of the most violent times seen in LA, and it will be coined as the Athens Park Massacre. On June 22nd, 2000, a group of Athens Park Bloods, including 29-year-old Melvin Williams and a man named Whitmore, aka Lil Titanic, and Reed, aka Lil Loco, were all gathered at the park. At around 8:10 p.m., a white rodeo pulled up in the parking lot. The windows would then roll down, and 2 1118 East Coast Crips would lean out the window with AKs and open fire on the crowd. The Athens Park Blood members will all take off running, but Williams will be fatally wounded, and he will be pronounced dead early Friday morning on June 23rd at the hospital. The police later will find the suspected vehicle on East 118th Street near Carver Park. It's believed that the East Coast Crips intentionally left the car near Carver Park to deflect the attention off of them and put it on Carver Park Crips instead. The death of Williams would spark a chain of events that no one seen coming. A few days later, on June 26th, Athens Park Bloods will retaliate. The Athens Park Blood members will be riding in the 1987 Cutlass by a nearby gas station where they will spot 3 Crips named Keith Jones, Ernest Delche, and Danny Price. One of the Bloods would lean out the window and open fire of the Cutlass with an AK-47, shooting at the members. No one was wounded in this gas station shooting. But on the very next day, on June 27, Athens Park Bloods would be back at it again. They would ride down East 126th Street in the Carver Park Crips hood. Daniel Lewis and his family were having a barbecue outside. Around 11 a.m., Athens Park Bloods would stop in front of Lewis's home. All 3 members of Athens Park Bloods were wearing red scars over their mouths. One Blood would hop out the passenger seat with the AR-50 and start dumping, hitting and killing Daniel Lewis as he sat in the chair in the front lawn. The second shooter in the backseat would pull out an AR-15 and also start shooting at other guests at the barbecue. A man named Dannon was shot in his arm. Dannon would ultimately survive, but as mentioned, Daniel Lewis would lose his life. Just days later, on July 1st, a funeral was being held for Athens Park Blood, Melvin Williams, at around 11 a.m. But when evening hit at about 7 p.m., Southside Crip, Ademo Freeman, and a man named Michael Walker played basketball at Carver Park near the corner of Success and 118th Street. They noticed a Cutlass pulled up, which was full of Athens Park Bloods. Athens Park Blood member Reed was in the front seat. As he made eye contact with Freeman, he suddenly pulled out an assault rifle and started shooting. Freeman and Walker both took off running, but in the midst of the shooting, Freeman was shot in both legs and collapsed to the ground. Reed and the Athens Park members would immediately drive off, but Freeman would survive the shooting and would identify Reed as a shooter to police. The very next day, on July 2nd, Jamal Mims, Felicia Smith, and a man named Jamal Jones were all standing outside an apartment complex on 11418 South Main Street in the area claimed by the 11A East Coast Crips, when suddenly a white vehicle pulled up full of Athens Park Bloods and they started shooting. Mims, Smith, and Jones were all hit, but Jones would be fatally wounded in this situation and would die at the scene. Just a day later, on July 3rd, Athens Park Blood member Williams, Whitmore, and Reed were driving 2 separate vehicles, a gray Oldsmobile and a burgundy vehicle. They would drive up 118th Street towards Central Avenue. At around 4:30 p.m., Anson and Anthony Miller were standing outside of a car while their father, Tony Miller, sat in the driver's seat of the car near Carver Park. When the Athens Park Bloods rolled up on them, Whitmer would roll down the backseat window and he would open fire on the family. Anthony Miller was killed and his father was shot in the hand while sitting in the car. Anson would be the only one not injured in the shooting, and immediately afterwards, both vehicles containing Athens Park Bloods would drive off and flee the scene. Unknowingly, the Athens Park Blood did not realize there were 2 Park Service officers patrolling that area and heard the shots and saw their vehicles flee in the scene. Whitmer and Williams and a woman driver would stop the car and hop out immediately and take off running on foot. After running a few miles, they would eventually surrender and they would be arrested. An Athens Park Blood member, Reed, would also be arrested later on also. In the end, Williams, Whitmore, and Reed were all found guilty of the murders and attempted murders stemming from June 26th all the way up to June 3rd of 2000. On February 2nd, 2005, Athens Park Blood member named Calvin Dotson, aka Balvin, and another Blood by the name of RB will be lurking around 971 East 120th Street in a white stolen van. Around 7 p.m., they would spot a Crip by the name of Brian Williams. Calvin Dotson, armed with a rifle, would shoot at Brian Williams out of the window of the van, killing Brian at the scene. The police would later arrive and find Williams' body laying on the sidewalk, and multiple witnesses would ID Dotson as the shooter, and Dotson will eventually be arrested and sentenced to life in prison. About 2 years later, on September 7, 2009, Renisha Cupcake Reed, a well-known Athens Park Blood, was walking near 128th Street in San Pedro when she was shot and killed.
24-year-old Renisha Reed was shot multiple times and left on a sidewalk to die. Family members of the victim gathered around the murder scene in unincorporated Athens Village this morning. They placed candles and flowers in the very spot where she died.
This here is one of the bullet holes where the guy that shot my niece last night was shooting at her, right here. The police evidently took the bullet out, but this is where she lay. Right here, where we have the candles, is her blood. Right here, where he shot her. And then we have rest in peace right here for Cupcake, you know. But, you know, she didn't deserve to be shot down like a dog the way she was by some strange man.
Detectives say it appears a gunman targeted Reed while she was walking after 1 o'clock this morning in the 12,800 block of San Pedro Street.
Based on what we know so far, we believe that the young lady was simply walking down the street minding her own business when she was confronted by a male Hispanic. We believe he is possibly a gang member. And although we don't know what triggered the event, the suspect began shooting at the young lady and ultimately killed her.
She was just out here, you know, just having fun, enjoying life. You know, we was all supposed to be at my auntie's birthday party, you know, and then she never made it.
We were asleep right there, and then we just heard the gunshots and the car screech.
Rosario Calvario says she heard the gunshots fire off one after another on the street next to her home.
There were like 5 gunshots, and then like when that stopped, we heard somebody scream.
About a year later, on August 15, 2010, Athens Park Bloods Christopher Murphy, aka Fat Bone, and Arnold Williams drove into Berrendo Avenue, deep into Raymond Avenue Crips territory. Around 12:50, they spotted a group of Raymond Avenue Crips standing outside. Williams Murphy would hop out the car and started shooting. In the midst of the shooting, Murphy was shot and hit by friendly fire from Williams. After the shooting, Williams will be transported to the hospital, and ultimately he would die from his gunshot wound to the back. When authorities arrived to the hospital, Williams will be arrested by them. It was determined by authorities that the ballistics matched the gun that Williams fired and the bullet that was found and pulled from Murphy's body. In the end, Williams will be charged with the murder of his own friend, Fat Bone Christopher Murphy. I want to thank everybody for tapping in and watching this video, and I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll see y'all next time.